ask now everybody to introduce. We don't have time to do introduction for everybody. We will spend the whole hour doing that. But I want to invite everyone in the chat room to write your name, where you are from, and anything you want to say about your experience in supervision briefly. So we have that there, and we can look and check and start getting to know each other. My goal with this network is to get people in Asia, supervisors who are in Australia and in Asia, to support each other and bring awareness of coaching supervision to the region, to build the community and to support each other in the work that you are doing. And why we started this network is because there is not as much awareness of coaching supervision in Asia yet as it was in the United States 8 years ago. So I remember meeting Michelle Moran. Michelle, do you remember when we met in Europe in one of the EMCC conferences?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it was in 2000. I cannot.
I remember one of the many years ago. And that was when we had the first training, coaching supervision training in the United States. That was in 2013. So I got trained there. So we're talking about in the United States, coaching supervision, we're talking about that, and in North America for 7 years. And I have been also training and bringing awareness of coaching supervision in Latin America in Spanish. But in Australia, I think they're advanced. Like in the UK, Australia, Canada, they're a little more advanced than everybody else. So we are behind, and we are trying to catch up and bring awareness and support and looking for opportunities and places for people to learn from each other. So the goal here today is to get to meet other supervisors, to learn what they are doing, and today we have different topics, and the topic today is working virtually. For the people who shall join us, unfortunately, Dr. Paras from India, he was going to do a session on transactional analysis, but unfortunately he couldn't join us today, so he's going to be doing that next month. And what I want to do today instead is to share with you a chapter that I'm writing for a book with Eve Turner. Some of you may know Eve Turner. She is the leader of the Global Supervisors Network in Europe. And the requirement to participate in that network is to have 50 hours of experience. So once you have 50 hours of experience as a supervisor, you can apply and be part of that. Some of you are coaches, some of you are supervisors in training. The difference between the two networks is that this one is open to anybody. Anybody can show up. You don't need to be a supervisor. Focus on supervision, but can be also for coaches interested in supervision and in the topic. So the chapter that we're writing is about working virtually. How to work virtually in supervision and coaching. And originally, this topic was a request from Tatiana Bashkirova, who is one of the leaders also in supervision in the world. Like you were talking about, Monica, you went to Oxford Brooks a couple of years ago. She's the director of the program. And she asked Eve and me to write a chapter on virtual supervision for the new edition of her book on supervision. So for the participants of my coaching supervision program, there is a book that we are using from Tatiana Bashkirova. She's editing that book, coming out with a new version. And Eva and I wrote a chapter on that book on a research that we did on virtual coaching. And interestingly, that was before COVID-19. But now, after COVID-19, I think that the research will have different findings. So we're writing another chapter for a book in the United States with it. It's a supervision in the Americas. And we're writing a chapter on supervision in the Americas, working virtually in America. So I interviewed 20 supervisors, local supervisors in the region. And with the 20 interviews, we are going to be writing a chapter for the new book. So I want to share with you some of the research. But before doing that, I want to ask you a couple of questions. And I want us to work together. And then I will share with you some of the results. So before we do that, I want you to write down a couple of questions that I want you to answer for yourself and then to answer in small groups. So first question is, how do you like working virtually? How do you like working virtually? If you had to choose between working virtually and in person, what is your preference? So the first question is, how do you like working virtually? If you had to choose working virtually or in person, what would you choose and why? What do you think are the advantages of working virtually? And do you have any secrets or any tips that you use to make it work for you? So what are your secrets or your strategies or your tips? Or what do you do to make virtual work for you? Okay, so these are the questions. I am preparing the rooms so we can go to rooms. Okay, so we have 4 or 5 people in each room. So what I want to ask is that you spend like 2-3 minutes each. Let's be back in 15 minutes, and then we'll have a conversation with everybody. But maybe you want to spend 1 extra minute and get to introduce yourself. So maybe you want to first say in 1 minute, no more than 1 minute, because you can spend the 10 minutes probably here. We have very experienced people. So just 1 minute. Introducing yourself and 2 or 3 minutes talking about what is your experience working virtually. So let's be back in 20 minutes so that gives time to everybody to talk, because getting to know other colleagues is one of our goals here. So let's spend 20 minutes and let's be back in 20 minutes.
Cancelled because of the COVID-19 situation. Yeah. So we have 4 people in this room.
5.
Okay.
I think Luca only has audio.
Yeah.
No, I have also voice. I have not camera. I'm like Michelle. It's 4 o'clock in the morning.
Thank you for joining us. Luca, do you want to introduce yourself briefly?
Just of course. I'm Luca. I'm living in Turin in Italy. I'm an executive coach, and I'm in practicing supervisor. I'm attending Michelle's course here in Europe.
Great, welcome. So do you start introducing yourself? Leo, you are introducing yourself?
Haven't heard from Jeff yet.
Okay. Hi. So can you hear me? Yep. So I'm Jeff, and I'm in Auckland, New Zealand. So it's quite a reasonable time of day. It's just after 4 p.m. in the afternoon. So I do appreciate those of you that are at the other end of the clock. Yeah. So I'm a coach and trainer here in New Zealand. I've been coaching a few decades. Supervision's relatively new to me. I kind of call myself a full spectrum coach because I do all kinds of different types of coaching, I guess, rather than just in exec coaching. And yeah, I've found yeah, quite easy to make some transition into getting some supervision activities underway as well.
So everybody already, I don't need to facilitate. I am here as somebody like, yeah,
oh, sorry, Peter and Lou, had you both introduced yourselves?
Not yes.
Yeah. You go first, Peter, or?
Okay. I have a retreat center in Bali. I train coaches, particularly in sort of Eastern Europe, Russia, Ukraine area. I trained in coaching supervision in France, Singapore, and Hong Kong with CSA, Coaching Supervision Academy. I do something called Conversations on the Edge of Silence and repatterning as long-term interests.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm an executive coach in Shanghai, China. I'm learning supervision, coaching supervision in Damian's class. I'm practicing. Yes.
And for Luca, I don't think we had met before, if I am not wrong. And it's nice meeting you. I think the rest of the people I know. So I am based in Los Angeles, and I have been a coach for almost 30 years and a supervisor with the first training that CSA did in the United States, 2013. And I have been advocating for supervision and doing presentations worldwide. Everybody who wants to hear me will talk about the importance of supervision.
Thank you.
So should we jump into the topics?
Well, I'm happy to dive in. What should we do? Question by question, or should I answer all questions at once? Sorry?
Maybe once per
question
yeah.
by question. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So, how do you like working virtually? I think for me, is it something new? Well, I've actually been virtually working since the 1990s. Actually, not very well, because of course then it was like dial-up modems and a lot of it was telephone based. But it was more it wasn't so much in coaching. It was like normal work. And I think and I can remember having that view or that belief that it was fine for getting business done, but when it came to like more connection, it really wasn't going to lend itself. And then I found increasingly it did work really well, and I started using it more. And then I found the limitation to it was the coachee pool that I had were resistant to using online, and actually it was them saying, I want to meet face to face and so on. And the most interesting thing for me since COVID is those very same people are now saying, oh, actually online works really well and fits in with my thing, and they don't want to go back to face. And I'm the one now left with actually I miss the energy of face to face. I do feel that, and I don't mean the energy like putting energy into stuff. I mean the bodily energy of connection of people, the electromotive kind of feeling you get of sharing in space with people.
Yes, I started working virtually with a coaching mentoring group beginning of last year, and it's better than I expected. And it's very time efficient, and also there's no restrict for locations. I have people from six people group from different cities. So especially in this COVID-19 situation, it works very well. I started liking working virtually, and I'm preparing to set up a virtual group for supervision. So yeah. And
Okay.
Well,
yeah,
Go, Luca.
I go
Yeah.
next. Okay.
Yeah.
for me, working virtually it is okay. I like it. I was used already to work in this way in a country where it was not so appreciated. Now with COVID, everybody has appreciated it.
And in your experience, Luca, how has been for you working virtually?
Sorry?
How has been your experience working virtually?
My experience, I started working virtually in, let me say, 10 years ago. So we call in Italy smart working virtually. I started 10 years ago, and for me it was normal. I made first one-to-one coaching session. Yes, 2009, and with the person who was skeptic about the effectiveness, but at the end of the path of the developing path, she recognized that it was okay, it was possible.
I guess I'm a little bit of a reluctant virtual worker, in that I miss the, you know, like smelling the coffee kind of face to face. But now I can't even remember what it's like to work with a in-person client. I think it's 5 or 6 months since the last time, and that was once in that 6 months, if you know what I mean. So I've grown to appreciate this way of working a lot more, adapted to it, and there's some kind of miracle that I had once with working with a large group. So it wasn't coaching or supervision, it was more like a seminar. And I really had that strong feeling of the interconnectedness, that you can be in different parts of the planet and it's like you're in the same field. And that's amazing. I think I prefer working where we have the visual. If I've worked with a person visually, I'm comfortable with auditory when the connection is poor. But generally, I really like to see the facial expression and some of the gestures and use of the body, even from a distance.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Cool. And so the next question: if you had to choose virtually or in person, which would you choose and why? For me, I think a lot of it echoes what Peter's just said there. I think that and what Lou said, I feel it is almost like a paradox, and I feel conflicted because from a efficiency and economic standpoint, it's really great that I can have my life and just come and sit in front of this and get work done. And I can reach many people in many places. But I think there's something, almost soulful, like a soul need of, longing for the physical connection back. And I feel that pull of wanting to be. So, and because I train as well, I'm being a bit counter to trends, because my whole training that I want to do is it's NLP based, so it's based around getting people more together, watching body language, and does require some kinesthetic connection and so on. So I'm kind of betting on there being a renaissance more back to that. So it doesn't work absolutely brilliantly from a business model perspective for me, but it does from a fulfillment, personal desire, so I think I see a blend. It's a bit like education and stuff, like blended learning. It's I don't want this to be totally life. I mean, if COVID stayed forever, then it would be a big concern if this is life forever for us. But I would see myself holding on to this and then doing a bit of the face-to-face coming back in, because I love that energy of meeting people. And anyone in face-to-face groups knows that, when you have that group, every group is different, and kind of the energy that comes and being attuned to that, and you can try to replicate it online, but I do feel that part of the communication is lost. Yeah. And certainly the bigger the group online, the more it seems to get lost. Sorry, that was probably a bit too long.
Okay, so I also prefer to face. It's due to a kind of habit. So once I think something is important, I always want to have a face-to-face communication instead of writing or a call. So now, especially for one-on-one executive coaching. So I do prefer face-to-face because, like Jeff said, that's physically we can see each other and feel much more than virtually. And also, I'm not a very social person, so that also gave me chance when I deliver coaching skill training, or mentoring or one-on-one coaching. So it's kind of exposure to the outside world. So I prefer to that too. Yes. Yeah.
I got next. I'm in a situation like Jeff, more or less. I live in a paradox, because from one side, I was used and I appreciated it to work in person. I would not say face-to-face, because here, not in this moment, we are face-to-face. We miss the body. But from a practical point of view, being here is only possible thanks to virtual reality. And what I do in the reality is that if my clients are 20 minutes far from where I live, we meet physically. Otherwise, we meet virtually. So I can say I prefer one way instead of the other. According to the situation and the distance, I prefer in-person meeting or virtual meetings.
Thanks, Luca.
I think a year ago I would have said in person. Now I'm not so sure. I feel like I've developed or learned something that I don't quite know yet in the virtual medium. I've adapted to it, and I'm curious as to what the reverse process will be. Going back to some live coaching or supervision. What will that be like? Will it have something fresh in it from all these months of working in a slightly different way, subtly? So I'm curious about that.
Yeah, that's really interesting, Peter. I think you showed the biggest change from saying you were reluctant the most, and actually you seem to be the one embracing it the most. So that was really interesting to notice that between the two. That's great. Okay, next question. Advantages of virtual working. Well, yeah, I mean, clearly, like if you want to have the life that you dream of, it works brilliantly, because I mean, for me, I can do what I go and walk on the beach, and then I think I've got a 10 o'clock coaching session, so I can come back and I don't have to worry too much about what I'm wearing, and I can think about
you have this color.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you don't have to shave, and I'll have a shower from going on the beach after I've done this session, so I could just sit here and so it's really great from that perspective. It does give you that global reach. So I feel I've kind of linked in and connected with a more diverse range of people and not that there isn't diversity in New Zealand, clearly there is, but we are, I guess, sharing a reasonably similar, New Zealand paradigm or ecosystem of experience. So it's not just meeting people from other cultures; it's actually them live live from their countries and issues that they're having and so on. So that's amazing, and that also supports them, like I suppose a specialism and a direction one might want to take coaching and supervision, that it can fit really with your own self concept, because you can more easily maybe seek out people that are fitting in with what you feel you have to bring to the world and who connects with you. So I think there's a lot of benefits like that to me. So
And for me, it's also kind of learning process. Last year I had a small group for training on coaching. I have half people on site, half people on the screen. So this is really interesting experience. And also I had some video broadcasting to I don't know how big the group is, but it's all over China for a big company. It's a little bit scary because I don't know who are listening, who are watching me, and whom I'm talking to. But it's very interesting experience, a good learning experience, and also made many things I thought impossible and possible now. So this is what I like. Yes.
I go next again. I really appreciated this kind of connection during COVID when we met with Peter Hawkins some sessions, and we had the chance to share at which point we were country by country with COVID. Sharing this experience during first lockdown was quite interesting. And during lockdown, with a group of pairs here in Italy, a coaching network, we were discussing about empathy and the difference of empathy working in presence and working via web. And there was not there were only subjective truths. So we decided that to launch a research project to understand something more about the difference between working in presence and working virtually. Now I am in a group. We are 14 certified coach, and we are making intervision, a peer group supervision. And there is a neuroscience professor who attends the sessions and who is trying to have a more scientific look at what happens. It will be a long project with probably 20 months. The idea is to do supervision virtually, as we are doing, from all parts of Italy, and at the end to do the same thing in presence, 2 or 3 days of non-stop sessions. And at the end of all these, we will see if we will find out something serious or structured, speaking about the difference.
I would love to look at the results.
Yeah,
because everything that we have been doing is not scientific from that perspective. It's more like qualitative research based on self-evaluations and comments. So I would love to hear what you find out in the research.
We are still in the moment in which we are trying to understand if we can find anything, because we are connecting. The scientific part is researching if there is an effect on the heart beating, and which are the difference between being present and being online.
That's great. And for you, Peter?
advantage for me, the main thing is the subtlety of recognizing that there is a connection of consciousness across distance. For me, that's the main advantage, you know, that we're separated in space, but there is a very deep, subtle connection in the field of awareness.
We pulled to the main room, so that was great talking. Sorry, I'm gonna keep here.
And then from there, hoping to play with that more.
That's so good.
Welcome back, everybody. We have a very interesting conversation in our group. Everybody else have good, interesting conversations?
Yeah, we did.
Yes.
You know, this is an interesting topic and important because this is what we are all dealing, how to be effective working virtually. Who would like to share some of the comments, observations in the group, any commonalities?
Well, I'm happy to dive into the group you were in, Damian. So I think, yeah, the main structure was that although we've all adjusted to virtual connection and so on, that actually the general preference was face-to-face, but we were just getting into an interesting discussion around what can still be achieved virtually as well. So yeah, so I guess it's a question is it a yearning for what we've lost that makes us want to go back to there being face-to-face, you know, or is, you know, or a fear of accepting that future thing, or is there some valid reasons behind that? And Luca in our group was talking about some research into that kind of area between being in person versus virtually, and what quantitative evidence there might be around a difference. So.
Thank you. Jeff, anybody else who would like to go next?
Our group was a little different in that all of us have been coaching virtually before the lockdown, and I think most of us said we actually preferred coaching virtually as far as coaching, if it was doing training or something different like that than in person. But so it you know, virtual has just become sort of the norm for pretty much everybody in our group, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, anybody.
It's interesting because this is one of the findings from the research that I had done with these 20. What I did is I interviewed the most experienced supervisors in the Americas, and most of them have been trained by CSA, Coaching Supervision Academy, some from Oxford Brooks, and some of the people who I trained many years ago. And all of them, they say supervision is virtual supervision. It's the only thing that they knew. Very different than in Europe with this, because when we were with Eve and we did the first research, and most of the people were from Europe, it was a mixed of people talking about their experiences. Most of them had started as working in person. And many of them have ideas about working virtually that some of you may share, but they didn't have a lot of experience working virtually. And now COVID-19 forced everybody to work virtually.
Yeah.
And I believe that many people, because being forced, you don't have a choice. And then you go with it. And then many people were surprised that they have a lot of pre-ideas or judgments or assessments that maybe didn't happen, that when they work virtually, they could still connect. And Peter was talking about that, and you just interrupted. We went back here. What you were talking about, I want to share with you, because you talk about the connection of consciousness across distance. Connection, I love, Peter, how you articulate it, so I wrote it down. You talk about the connection of consciousness across distance, even we're separated by space, still the interconnection can happen. Anything else, Peter, you want to say about that? You're on mute. You're on mute. We cannot hear you yet.
Yep.
Okay, now we can hear
Sorry
you.
about that.
It's okay.
Read my lips. Yeah, it's like one of the most beautiful advantages for me of virtual work is that sense that you can be talking to somebody on the other side of the planet, but there is a perfect connection of consciousness. And it really demonstrates very concretely how, while we may think that we're separated, we're more than connected. We share a foundation of conscious awareness that's present here and present there, and can move. From like before this group, I was talking to someone from Bulgaria in Guatemala, and it's like there's no distance.
Yeah.
So it's the other side of missing the physical, and it becomes one of the advantages for me of or tips to make it work is starting from that presupposition that we are connected across time and space, more than virtually. That connection is very real. It really changes the quality of my work.
Thank you, Peter, for sharing that, because something that came up in the interviews, people, like from the 20 people that I interviewed, 16 talk about energy. So I want to ask this question to everybody here. When you hear the word energy, what is your interpretation of energy? Because what people were saying is that there is an energy that is created that at one point was missing because you were not in person. Like there is in person, there is an energy. Virtually, you don't have that energy.
No, that's right.
But is that true? Monica has a reaction, and then Herman. Monica, what are you going to say?
It's definitely not been my experience, because I hadn't done, I'd always done some work virtually, but not a great deal. But, obviously since COVID, everything has been virtual, including all the groups I run. And I have found that I somehow feel the energy through the screen. I don't know, but it honestly, I don't think it's made any difference. And I thought initially maybe it's just because I know these people, because I've been supervising them for some time. But all the new clients, it was the same. I seem to, there's kind of like an energy that comes through, I think. Well, there has for me anyway. Honestly, I don't think it's made much difference for me, which has surprised me.
Yeah, I think there may be different kinds of energy at play. So I get that kind of energy that even in this, I could put effort into generating energy in myself and bringing that through you. But I think there's another kind of energy, which obviously in the Eastern thing would be called chi or whatever, that could even be explained by science of as being an electromagnetic field. And this idea that some people, can drain a room and other people can bring energy to a room really talks to that. And that kind of came very much to, as an evidence to me in a training actually, where we were connected physically in a room, and we were really close, and I felt this really bad kind of feeling through my body. And I was next to a facilitator, and that facilitator had a heart attack about an hour and a half later. And since then, I'm absolutely convinced that there are people create energy fields, right? I mean, there is nothing that's going to break that belief for me because of that experience that I had, that I was close to someone within an hour and a half of them having a heart attack. And so for me, I think that is lost, whatever that might be, and whatever we would do with that when we're physically together, which is something else. Whereas I think in this, there's more of a rational cognitive sense of energy rather than an emotional spiritual one.
It's interesting. This is very interesting because there is the cognitive, the emotional, the intuitive, and the spiritual.
Yeah.
This is a different explains what makes this. I find it fascinating, and sometimes I find that I don't have enough words and language to talk about it.
Yeah.
Herman, you want to say something?
Yeah, and maybe I add a social role aspect to this, because my experience when I contrast when I was coaching people in person and now virtually, before I would, sort of get on a plane, get on my suit, fly to Malaysia, get picked up, go to the corporate headquarters, and have a session with them. And now I'm having a session with them in their bedroom, in their kitchen, and I'm in my t-shirt. And the energy is different. And part of it is them, and part of it is me. Because sitting in my room here, I'm looking at pictures of things I love, my children, my this, and I'm thinking, wow, how different, but this, almost from a sociological point of view, I was in a role. I was the executive coach. And now I'm more Herman, and I didn't get picked up by a car, and I didn't fly in, and I didn't do that. I'm just in my room talking to a person. So that is, to me, the benefit of virtuality. So it's energy, but it's also, I'm looking at it from a sociological thing of, what role am I in? Who am I? Which of my multiple roles? So that.
It's interesting, because the point is that we are seeing people in situ, where they live. And sometimes we have the plus and the minuses, because there are a lot of distractions to the kids, the dogs, to the postman. So these are the kind of things that may not happen, Herman, if you are at the office.
But now the kids come in, because in the beginning of this, I have a 5-year-old, and I always try to keep them away. And I instructed them, I'm now coaching. But I thought, what the hell? What's the most important thing here? And so children intrude, their families, I won't say intrude, they're just there. And one of the things I was sharing with my group, I was thinking how, if you think historically, there was a time pre-industrial revolution when the work was done in the family was the work unit, and somehow family and work was combined. And then we separated them. We went to work. Now work is back in the family, and we're integrating those things. I think that's a fascinating experience we're all having, combining our families with the work that we do, whatever that work is.
What I want to do the last 10 minutes is talk about conditions, how we create the best possible conditions to make this work effectively. And I hear that most of you, we have been over that almost for most of us different times, but more than 7-8 months, and 9 months, some of us, depending where you live. But there are some conditions that may help this to make it work better. And one of the key findings that in the research that we have been doing is about contracting. And for people who are supervisors here may be more aware the importance of contracting, and many times topics that coaches bring to supervision, many times if you see the percentage of topics are related in some way to contracting. So for example, we can contract about, Herman, where you're talking, where you're going to have the meetings, what will happen if there are distractions, how will you manage the distractions, what are the expectations. Sometimes one of the key challenges is technology. And it seems that most of us here today, we're here, but probably there is at least 1 or 2 people who may have not been able to join us because they didn't have good internet, particularly in some parts of Asia, some parts of Latin America, some parts of the United States. Anywhere in the world, there are parts of the world where the internet doesn't work, no matter where you are. So how do you manage that? And how do you deal with the technology challenges? And technology sometimes is equipment, sometimes internet, but it's also sometimes professionals not knowing how to make it work. So it's also that this element of that are in their way in terms of making virtual work work well. But in terms of conditions, other than contracting, that is an important one, is how you prepare. and how do you manage distractions, breakdowns of all kinds. What else do you think are important elements for effective conditions that we need to create working virtually?
I'd like to add,
Yeah.
like we mentioned that our clients come in from their home. So one of the invitations we always like to make with our clients, corporate clients, is that they come on video. And sometimes they don't realize they have to come on video. And that's when they say, okay, give me 5 minutes, I need to change. So yeah, sure, go ahead, take that 5 minutes and come back in. And at the end of the session, they say, I was in my pajamas, but having gone through this session, I feel I'm feeling great. And when we give that space, then our clients want to recognize that it's a space they're coming in and it's actually revitalizing them. And also we also encourage that if they've got a daughter or a son that needs to walk in and say hi, and then we say hi, and then let them nicely go off again and come back again if they have to, but some amount of allowing a little bit of a distraction and letting the distraction slowly go off again. It's something that I guess we all have to be a bit fluid with. But the invitation of coming into the space is something that, and valuing this space and bringing into the space some of the challenges they face. I mean, a lot of people who are working from home have to help the children with their homework, and they have to like ferry the children and so forth. So there's a lot of challenges they're facing. So it's the mindset and the value that they can see in coming to this precious space.
Yeah. And what you're saying about when there are distractions and interruptions, I don't think it's a good strategy to keep going like nothing is happening.
Yeah, we do recognize, oh, okay, it looks like your daughter's here, and then he lets his daughter go off slowly and then goes off. And after a while, we allow a little bit of distraction, but so there needs to be a support structure as well, in a sense. I was having a session with a couple, and one of them said, okay, let me take my kid away so that you can have the discussion. And then they took turn to take care of the kid. So there's some amount of partnership and support structure needs to be there. So some people try to be everything to everyone, they be the parent and the colleague and everything else. They need to also draw some boundaries and to give themselves that space for themselves too, so that they can feel life is meaningful. Because if not, life is like so mixed up. There's no time to revitalize. I think that's important, to give them space to revitalize as well.
Thank you for sharing that. We have a couple of minutes before we go. Cookie, you raised your hand. Anything you wanted to add?
Okay, so I just wanted to add to that the issue of this is the reality we're in. If we're going to be present and kids are coming in or cats are coming in or dogs, or this is our story and this is what we have to deal with. If we have pants, if we're wearing pajamas, and if part of our reality is having to deal with these things on a daily basis, as Simcho says, the other issue is the cultural issue of nonverbal communication. And I don't want to put those who don't have their cameras on the spot, but it makes a difference if your camera's not on and if you're speaking and we can't see your face. And again, I'm not judging, I'm just mentioning that these are issues. Part of the presence is looking at the nonverbal communication for certain.
I think that's so important from my own experience. And I think I'd add to that even asking someone when they have got their camera on to ensure that you can see more of them. And I had one experience where somebody I was coaching who was a vet, and she was like disengaged with what she was doing with her current employer here in New Zealand and so on. Now, if her camera was kind of just to imitate, it's here, I would have missed the non-verbal cue because her hand was actually over her heart. And I just, fortunately I could see it. So I just sort of said, what's that about, like that. And that led to learning, her realization that actually she'd become a vet for certain reasons about the protection of life and, the beautiful of the fauna in the world. And here she was checking abattoirs were killing animals properly.
Yeah, I do believe
and this took the discussion at a totally different level, rather than just trying to sort out issues with work. Was, am I even doing the right thing with what I'm qualified to do? And if I was in a room, I definitely would have seen it. Virtually, I could have missed that if I hadn't set up, you know, the scene properly to be able to see what she was doing with her hands. Yeah.
And if I could just add the issue of the background, I remember a long time ago, Damian, you said, well, my thing is the world, and you can see my globe here and the map in the back, and the backgrounds give us a story as well. And some people choose to put a beach in Tahiti. So how does that give part of the story that we're trying to tell and to share, and what we're perceiving also, whether it's there or Herman, the things you're looking at that we can't see, but we can see your background. Those are part of your story.
That is so true, because people have said, oh, is that really your office? And I go, oh, I wish. and then afterwards I thought, I wish, why aren't I acting on it? You know, and it has led now to us converting our garage into another living space. So not quite like this, but like clearly there was a need for a different space. So yeah, you're quite right.
And as you can see, this is a topic that we can keep talking, because it's really real, and I have not seen many places to discuss that and to share best strategies and best practices. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you, when the chapter is ready, I'm going to share with you the chapter with the strategies and the ideas, because the key element I shared with you already, the contracting. The other piece is what, Cookie, you were talking about, setting up the space to the extent that you can plan a little bit. So for example, I tell my partner, I'm going to start a class or a coaching session or whatever. So in my home, people know what's happening. And also related to that, lighting, for example, how important is key small thing that make a big difference in the communications and in the experience. Other than also knowing the technology. Also, it's an issue that came up in the research is creativity. That there are many things that you can do in person that you cannot do virtually, but people are being very creative. Like for example, Michel, he presented last year at the conference, and he was talking about supervising in organizations, and you were very creative, you know, the way that you make the whole visual work. Something, and you say, okay, this is the first time that I am doing that. You don't know what is going to happen, and it worked out well, but we had to take some risks. And I think that this is also, I want to invite people to consider how we can be creative in our work. One of the things that I have been doing is working with pictures. So the person will bring a topic, and I will show, like, instead of having the pictures on the table, I will show pictures, like 10 pictures, and say, is there any of these pictures talking to you? And as one of the ways to enter into the conversation. When we need to wrap up, I don't want to take more time. I want to thank everybody for coming. I want to invite people who are here today. If you want to present in the future, we have a schedule. We have people scheduled for the next 4 months. Still need more people for the rest of the year. So if you can send me a note. If you don't receive the invitation to this and you were invited by somebody else, I am going to write down in the chat room my email. So you can send me an email and ask me to add you to the list. So you receive the invitation every month. And we change the room. Sometimes you need to register for each meeting to come, because it's for Zoom to work. Everybody needs to register, but it's the same ID for a few sessions. And in terms of announcements, next month, Paras coming from India to the presentation on transactional analysis, and he's going to be focusing on the triangle, on the victim triangle, and in the winning triangle, and in symbiosis. This is going to be the topic, going to be interesting, and looking forward to seeing you again in next month in February, at the end of the month. It's always the last Tuesday of the month in the evening, Wednesday, the last Wednesday in the morning in Asia, Tuesday night in the United States. So thanks everybody. Thanks everybody for presenting, Sharon, and I hope that you meet new people today, and that we can all keep making the community grow together.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you everyone.